you're okay, I will go maskless, but if you're not, I will not go maskless. Up to you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Where
Just
am I
my temperature,
gonna-
fine.
I just got work. Yeah, y'all don't want me not wearing my mask. I'm gonna help. Sure.
I'll not, but I try to check my temperature.
No positive. Well, my kids, before they went to camp, we had to take the temperature every morning. And Trace has been, y'all take his temperature, so every day they take, Trace's temperature. So he was like, oh, this is great. I'll down there, my temperature every day. You can see.
I'll be way to, to see if you got a problem.
Oh, I
Good.
think it's super- You're good.
But you gotta take it before you take any medication.
Oh, man, they all have the masks on. Yeah. Oh my God, it's gonna be so hot up there with your mask outside. Like, I'm hoping they had to wear it.
Let me exit out of this one.
Yesterday we dropped them off. And from 70 degrees. Where was it? At camp. We
Oh.
went to-
Blistering.
That was the real temperature?
Yeah, it was at Lake Austin. Lake Austin. It's a remote. camp. That was.
So the heat index was probably around 115 at least.
And we wore our mask in, but we never got on the phone. They were like, here. Here it comes.
Let him go.
We don't get out of
All
car.
right.
Gladly, it's too hot.
So we're broadcasting. All right, we're broadcasting to the world. Kuna Matata. Charles, you hear us? You're on mute. Joan, do you hear us?
Yes, I hear you very well.
Charles,
I hear you.
what's in that Coke, Mayor?
Is this a live broadcast?
Yes,
Just Coke, right?
Just a Coke. I didn't say Coke, I said,
Well, Mayor, you want to call us into order?
what is today's date? The 13th, this is 7/13.
Yes, sir.
We'll call this meeting workshop into order. It is now 12:54.
Oh, who's got a scanner on? Oh, Mayor, your scanner's on.
Huh?
Does someone have a police scanner on?
Oh, I do. I got it.
All right, do we have any citizen comments? No citizen comments. So we'll go ahead and kick off and go over to reports and general information. We're going to kick things over to Darla.
Okay, in your packet, I've got.
Can you guys hear Darla?
No?
You're going to have to sit here.
Better take a water.
What about your computer?
No, that's just for questions if I have anything. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. You Verizon?
Pardon?
Are you Verizon?
Verizon.
Oh, yes, I guess I'm Verizon. I don't know what that means either.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Oh, can you hear me now? I get it now. Took me a while. Went over my head. First thing I'm going to talk about is all the different funds. And I know everybody has been through this several times, except for Shannon. This is your first time. So when we make the budget, each fund has its own individual budget. So what I have here first is just descriptions for what each section of that budget incorporates. So the first thing, of course, is the big. don't know if you're behind tab 3. The general fund is our main fund. It is everything that kind of counts for your basic core general fund activities, which is health, safety, welfare, your police, your fire, EMS, public works, except for beach operations, are under this fund. Main sources of revenue are the property tax, franchise tax, and sales tax. Of course, your building department, building permits are in there also. And that's our big fund that everything's going to revolve around invest setting our tax rate. The hotel motel fund, the city gets 7% hotel motel tax on every room that is rented for anything less than 30 days. The chamber gets 3.25% of that 7% to go for sales and marketing efforts. We up that from 3% to 0.25 a few years ago for the convention center project. The hotel motel special fund gets 3.25% of the tax also, and it does supports things like our piers, the nature preserve payment, special projects to tourist facilities like the nature preserve are in there. The facility fund gets the remaining 0.5% of sales tax of hotel motel tax, and it covers things like the civic center and the community center. And it's got a pretty healthy balance of around $1 million. The state gets 6% of hotel motel tax for every night room rate is rented, and they send us 2% of their 6% back to cover beach operations. And all the things for the beach go into the beach fund. Our lifeguard operations, beach cleaning, patrolling of the beach, restroom facilities, beach grant, everything is in the beach permit. Beach permits are also in there, and it covers everything to clean, maintain, and take care of the beach. Nature preserves, exactly what it says. It covers the nature preserve, and it doesn't have a revenue source. So the hotel motel special fund supports its operation expenses, grant expenses. We've got quite a few grants going on for the nature preserve too, to build some new boardwalks. And then of course it's got a lot of FEMA projects to get it rebuilt to back to where it was before. Debt service is a portion of your tax rate goes to pay off bonded debt that has been approved by councils. I have listed here all of the issues that are outstanding for now, how much is outstanding on issue, and when they will be paid off. So in the tax calculation formulas, a portion of the tax rate goes to pay off those debts. Construction fund is about down to 0. We don't really have anything going on in construction fund anymore because we pretty much finished off our bond projects right now from the bonds that we have issued previously to build the streets and drainage projects that we had going on.
Budget meeting.
Street maintenance fund is a fund we have to maintain the roads so we don't have to issue bonds to rebuild them every few years. We want to take care of them better and do a he's need to know to do overlays and things like that so that we don't have to do rebuilds and spend so much money. We'd like to spend money wisely and maintain them versus having to rebuild them all the time. Municipal court technology fund and security fund are exactly what they say. A portion of each ticket, $4 and $3 respectively, go into those funds, and those funds can only do what is stated in their title: technology for the court and security for the court, for jails and courtrooms. So it can pay for cameras, etc. Airport fund, exactly what it says. The airport has some sources of revenue with our hangar rental. Since the hangar rents have gone up the last few years, it's really self-supporting now. We used to steal from the harbor, and we really aren't having to do that anymore. So, and the money for the TxDOT aviation improvements are sitting there waiting for those projects to be finished on the runway and things. They've already been transferred from the general fund and are still sitting there waiting to complete those projects. Harbor Fund supports the harbor, all of its operations, revenues and expenses, gas operations, sanitation is, all the monies we collect from the sanitation bills go into that. It helps pay for our collection station and all the bills where we have to pay out to Republic Services for the sanitation. Impact fee zone 1, we've been getting collections in. It's to go for the 11th Street and 361 projects. So a portion of all the building permits, which is everything north of the Cinnamon Shore borders except for Harbor Island, go into that. We have about 275,000 in that, and we've been transferring money every year to pay off the 11th Street bond so that the taxpayers don't have to absorb all that. And impact fee zone 2 is everything south of Cinnamon Shore's border, so it's a very small
Yeah, Cinnamon Shore 1.
section. I'm sorry, impact bone fee zone 2. I said Cinnamon Shores 2. It's everything south of Cinnamon Shores, and we've only gotten about 19,000 since that first went in, and that's to build the beach access road B someday, hopefully. Park dedication fees, exactly what they say. Any new dwelling units can go for park projects. This is where we got some matches for playground equipment, etc. RDC Corporation gets a 1/2 cent of sales tax. Sales tax has been down this year, so RDC has been pretty tight. We will have to have some RDC, so everybody that's on RDC board know that, we're gonna have to appoint somebody because Beverly was on that. We're gonna have to have some meetings. So we'll let you know when we're gonna have those. And the Hurricane Recovery Fund is exactly what it says, paying for all of our hurricane recovery projects. I'm gonna skip the next page that talks about fund balances shows you all the funds that I just discussed. The beginning balance of where we were October 1st of this year, estimated where we think we're gonna have a change for this year, and where we will end up at September 30th, estimated. Our general fund, we're still doing well. We've got about 246 days of operations right now. We need $28,302 a day. And we've got, I think we'll have around 6.9 million at the end of the year. Tax rate, all the verbiage has changed for a tax rate, but it's basically the same thing it was before. No new revenue tax rate is a new definition for something that before was called the effective tax rate, which means you're raising the same amount of revenue that you raised in the prior year. And so they just changed it with Senate Bill 2 to change it to no new revenue. So that is basically what your baseline rate is. Before, you could go up 8% over that rate, and they called that the rollback rate. Now the word has changed to voter approval tax rate, and it's only 3.5%. So of that baseline rate, the no new revenue rate, you can only go up 3.5% above that rate. If you go up 3.51%, you have an automatic election in November. So it would put everything on hold in your budget until the election in November. If the voters approved it, you could charge more tax. If they don't approve it, you've got to go down to the 3.5%. So we're never going to.
That meeting by the
August
council
24th.
meeting.
Has to be done by August 24th. And I can't see that y'all would ever do that. And we will not be bringing you a budget that will be over 3.5% of that rate, because it just would be bad business. But what they do have now that was not been present before is they have something called an unused increment rate. So the difference between your baseline rate and the 3.5% rate, if you don't go all the way up to the 3.5% rate, you can bank that portion of your tax rate for future years and go up without forcing an election.
So if we went $0 this year, the next year we go 7.
Basically, yeah, yeah, something like that.
Without a
It's
vote.
without a vote.
Yeah, okay.
And it, some of it's only a 3-year rolling.
I just wanna
Yeah,
make sure I got
You
it.
can't do it 10 years from now for this
No, I
portion of the
wanna
rate,
make
but
sure
3
that was
years.
just-
Mhm. So if there's a disaster or something, you'd have that in your back pocket, the incremental value that you did not raise your taxes by. Last year, if you remember, we did a tax cut and we went below our effective rate. Can't use any of that. It doesn't start till this year with the new bill. So there's nothing on the table from last year that's going to roll forward, if that makes sense. And of course, you've got two parts of the tax rate, your interest and sinking, which pays for your debt that we mentioned in the debt service fund, and then your maintenance on operations, which is the portion that goes in the general fund to take care of all general fund operations, those health, safety, welfare operations. Current tax rate right now, we're sitting in just around 28 cents. About 5.8 of that is for the, I have those backwards. INS is 5.8, M&O is 22. I just looked at that and went, what happens when you're working on a smaller computer? So the interest
Say
in
that
sinking
again.
for the interest
that.
in, I have it backwards in the book where you're looking, I have M&O rate is 5.8. That's actually your debt rate. That's the interest in sinking. And the M&O rate, maintenance and operations, it goes for all your general fund operations is 22.4 cents. I inverted them. In the prior tax calculations, the state has always allowed you to be able to tax for new construction without falling into that formula of the increase in the rate. They will still do that. So any new construction we have, the state looks at that as an extra demand for your services. So they allow you to tax for that without putting it into your formula. Does anyone have any questions on taxes? Good. And I put in a article, since Senate bill is so new, Texas Municipal League put out a good frequently asked questions on the new tax rate. And I just put the article in there if anybody wants to read that and peruse that, they can. One thing it did do that's good is we only have to have one public hearing now if we have to have a public hearing for the tax rate versus two. And you can vote on your tax rate the same meeting you have the public hearing. In the budget calendar at the end, we're going to talk about, I have it proposed in two different meetings because we still have to have a budget hearing also. So I figured why not just do it in two. But
In reference to COVID, so if you're in July, we're supposed to get the certified estimate. Do we think we'll still get a certified estimate, or have you guys ever had to deal with a certified appraised roll? Not getting an estimate?
they're going to have to give us.
We can't hear anybody from the floor.
Bring your microphone to you. Chuck was just asking if we thought there might be a delay in the certified tax roll because of COVID. And there shouldn't be, there can't be.
No.
They have to give us something for us to calculate.
Yeah, I already know that. I've asked that question. They said absolutely. No,
So-
no reduction.
After the frequently asked questions on your tax rate, I just have some information about the hotel motel tax that y'all can read on your own. I've got a section of our ordinance in there, which talks about the things that our ordinance allows hotel tax to be spent on. And then I have a use of local hotel occupancy tax revenues, the big, I think it's 7 in here, 7 tests that it must meet, because you can't use it for your health, safety, welfare, things like I discussed that are in the general fund. So that's kind of an overview of finance. If anyone has any questions, I can answer. Good?
Thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the street maintenance, and so as you mentioned, there's $125K annually transfers from the general fund to that, and I noticed the change was exactly.
There is 125 this year projected to be transferred. When we set the budget is when we see if we
Oh.
can transfer some money.
What
into
was the
that.
question?
He asked on the street maintenance fund. He saw that we have $125,000 predicted as the change in that fund. And we
Mhm.
have 125,000 as a transfer this year. He's just wondering if that was an annual 125 every
Okay.
year.
All right, thanks.
The only
Darla,
thing we're
park
really
dedication
using,
piece, Did we not tap into that last year much?
got my budget over there. I don't think we were gonna have to tap in. We were gonna tap into it for the splash pad, but we got the Texas Parks grant and we didn't have to. So we have not tapped into it since right before Harvey, the playground, the new playground that we got right before Harvey that's at the Roberts Point Park. We tapped into it for that, which was about 110, and we haven't used anything since then.
Darla,
DC you're talking about?
Pardon?
Is that RDC you're talking about?
No, we were talking about the park dedication fees, that we haven't really tapped into the park dedication fees since Fort Harvey.
Darla, if you can repeat the question to the floor so that we can hear it. We
Okay.
can't.
Got it.
My question was, I know in the past, Mr. Urban has rather say like list of streets that not need to be repaired, but like potential future maintenance, just with the, road improvement budget. Has he made a list? I didn't see it in the packet.
No, he has not made a list.
Did you hear that?
No,
Bruce asked if previous years we've had a list from Urban on the streets where he categorized them. And he asked if we had that this year, and we do not. Because a lot of our streets, well, we'll talk about streets during the FEMA project, because that's where we are. We're pretty, our worst streets need to be repaired due to the Harvey.
One more, just in reference to Hurricane Harvey, so we know that stripping the flip side about $5,800,000 is, so is that basically coming from general fund? You know, the shortfall until we get funds from FEMA?
Yes, I mean, it's coming from, yeah, all of our pooled cash and that type of thing, but from everything, we kind of use it all as one big pot, but that's how it's really allocated.
what was the question, Darla? I didn't hear it.
The question was, right now, when you look at the Hurricane Recovery Fund, it's in the negative quite a bit. And he was asking if that money was being lent from the general fund right now. And the answer is yes.
Okay.
Then as we get payment, we reimburse it.
We've been, once, it is coming from pooled cash. Right, right.
No. Not
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not out of budget item. It's coming from pooled cash of everything, but there was something else I was gonna say about it.
You're going to repeat the question. We can't hear anything.
It wasn't a question. Wendy just made a statement that it wasn't coming from necessarily a budgeted line item. It was coming from pooled cash,
Okay, I got it.
which is all our reserves when you put them together.
Oh, Health Department, I gotta go.
Did he put us on mute? He did. He muted it.
Okay.
Switch back.
Thank you, Darla. With that, we're going to our broadest update, correct? And whoever's doing it gets to sit at the hot seat.
Little while since I've seen the group. Hello, everyone.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi.
No. COVID has stopped me from traveling as much. Ben Castleberry's here as well. So just as far as the update of where we are for the year since we sat in one of these last year, community center, the Chamber of Commerce is under construction as we speak. Station Street bathrooms pretty much completed with just the drainage to the side. So that's the only thing holding that project up. which we spoke to FEMA on Wednesday about to try to expedite that to the top and get an answer. We have McDonald Ball Field. It's up and running. We actually just issued a notice to proceed for all the drain covers that are not along the federal highway. Have them repaired. There's 15 of them total. 15 total. Island Construction was the low bid on that, so that'll be coming. That's a 30-day.
All your broken inlet boxes,
The caps, the tops.
you know, the trucks have driven over and
Allister's probably your worst strip of where they are, where most of them are. So that's about to begin work. Debris trucks, AAP debris, yes, ma'am. So those are going now. Some of the things, we had a 65% review drawings on the Public Works building. So we've got those comments in, those changes are being updated, as well as FEMA is reviewing that packet from Turner Ramirez. We have all of our project award appeals into on fire station and public safety. Those are in. It's in. FEMA's clock is ticking. Some of the roads, yes, we talk about the roads. Probably we get coming up, but the roads are still out there pending determinations from FEMA. As is the drainage projects that we had actually in last budget hearing. We actually applied for the mitigation grant on those that's the one that runs the Nature Preserve, David, the main projects that were brought to you from Urban last year. So that grant is still active and pending. They've reserved the money for the state side, but no award, official award yet. Marina money's coming in. We've submitted all the documentation to finally get the flow of all the obligated funds. So that should be a good chunk coming to Darla. Right. So that's moving forward. Roberts Point Park, outside of the large pavilion, that was taken out of the contract from Island because we discovered a lot of storm-related problems within it. Actually sent an email yesterday to FEMA to figure out what that decision is and what's taking so long because it's attached to the EDA grant that's out there with DNAC. Debris done since last year. Category B, all that work, that emergency temporary work outside of some temporary gas work, that's all completed. And just moving in, a lot of the equipment has been replaced since we met last year. As far as public works, trucks, all the things you saw throughout the year being approved in the council, including apparatus and stuff like that. I think we have some generators, public works has still got to order, and some other things, but nothing major. And then, of course, contents, not much of that's been purchased in this year at all. So it'll be a lot of next year when we start inhabiting the buildings that way. Libraries towards a closeout, punch list with FEMA, City Hall. As well, we're working on some discoveries in City Hall right now with the contractor and Turner and Ramirez. I think they sent an email trail that they kind of ironed everything out, so they've got their direction. And then we'll be in our trailers, our temporary fire station and our trailers through the whole year, this year coming up. So we expect that expense to be in line with what is going on now as we speak. So I think that kind of hits the high, and gas system, high pressure line is at a final review. And that's about a $7 million project. FEMA environmental. That should be close to being stamped to go forward. We had a call with the Army Corps of Engineers, Wildlife and Fisheries, NOAA, FEMA, NTDEM, all on the call with us in Urban last week so we could quit playing the ping pong game where everybody punts to somebody, hits it back to somebody else. So everybody was on the call, and it was actually a very, very good working meeting. Hopefully it'll help expedite the piers as well, which are pretty much designed and ready to go once we get environmental clearance. And so those letters of notifications to those agencies have been sent out by FEMA, but they have time, they're allotted time for each one of them to respond. So that's
a lot of time.
Yeah, it's, a minimum of 30 days. One was running, I think our last application ran 280. I don't expect that on the piers because they're all pre-existing. But I think gas was the 280, wasn't it? Yeah, I think gas underground stuff was the 280 days it took us to get a thumbs up from FEMA on that environmental.
Michael, when you say the gas is 7 million, that's. portion.
High pressure,
Yeah,
yes,
that's the
ma'am.
high
That's,
pressure highway line,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
like from just past Jay's down to, in the Corpus where our, so it's like, 8 miles of, or no, it's longer than that.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like 10
longer.
miles.
So you're breaking it down?
Yeah, so we're splitting it out.
Okay.
The way FEMA came at us, it was a $40 million project all in one. They didn't have enough or didn't feel comfortable enough with the information that we originally provided in the binders from Urban and Lyle. And so what we did is we got phase one of like 1.7 was the first phase of money to take it to the next step. Then we jumped it up to 3.4 that brought Urban and his team in to start laying it out, which is what paid for where we are now. And then the high pressure line is enough to where we can seal it off and not have an interrupted or a backflow. So that we're going to do that piece. So we're piecing it upon approval. If we waited for the high pressure line to the full distribution, that environmental review from FEMA would slow things down. So we're just, and it's helping with cash flow. I mean, we're talking about bidding a 20-something million project versus taking 7 to 8 of that out of it. So that'll go to bid. It's ready now in July. I need the final blessing from FEMA. Hopefully we'll see something in August in front of y'all in September. And we're going to shop that in a little bit bigger markets too. So there's already some buzz going around, people looking for it, ready for the work and stuff. So I think we'll get a good response out of that. And then, of course, we have the EDA grant stuff, the park around Roberts Point Park with the pavilion and the harbor master, and then all the loop, I guess y'all are calling it, but the road, the shut off of the road. That's all a master plan, working with Janak and Urban and all them to present to the right committees. And so that's in review right now. So EDA, we've been in constant contact with, and then the other mitigation projects really rely on FEMA. So do we need to raise the fire station with mitigation money, or is FEMA going to pay for it? That's part of that work we're doing right now and the package we put together. We actually talked to all of the elected officials in DC that we visited with in December. In the last 2 weeks, Darla and David and our team and Jim Kuhn from up in DC have spoke to every office and have compiling that updated report of what has happened since December to now, what are our struggles. So that I'll have that completed and out this week to them. But they were very responsive in trying to assist us, knowing we couldn't go up there right now.
Yes, it was Cruz, Cornyn.
Cruz was allowed, yeah, Cloud. Right, we had Cloud and Cornyn 2 weeks ago, Cruz last week. It's the same battle we've been dealing with. We actually 2 weeks ago got our new team from FEMA. So that's number 10 on their task force lead, number 9 on our PDMG. So they, not PDMG, branch director.
And it's statewide. It's
Yeah.
a statewide issue. It's not just us.
Yeah.
That's actually a lot of what we heard back from everybody in DC is whether it makes you feel better or not, this is what we're hearing from everybody. So it's not just us they're picking on, it's everybody. But it does make things challenges. The email we sent out over the weekend was basically the cliff notes to what got us to this 3 years of work for all the newbies to catch up. And what there's struggles and stuff. So we sent it, we copied Tony Robinson on it, we copied everybody. Portal process helps if they look in it, but they don't look in it. And then,
It helps us. to tell them
Yeah,
a lot of
it-
information.
like
Right.
McDonald Ballfield, for example, they came back with a ton of questions that we had addressed 2 years ago, started changing course and action. We went back through the portal, put the chronological timeline, why we did what we did, why we waited to bid it and everything, and provided that. And all of a sudden, it was the questions were reversed back into the course. But that's time consuming. I mean, it takes digging through their portal to show them what they already have. But if, we got to do what we got to do. So that was a favorable $1.2 million flip in a couple weeks' time. Darla, don't choke on me like that. So that's it in a nutshell. I do see public safety and fire through the year. We still have a lot of work left to do on the design before it goes to construction with the cost share and our budget will go up as we start to move through those design conceptions. And hopefully have some of the projects that the public sees, the piers,
Yeah.
parks, stuff like that.
Piers out.
So we're aggressively pushing on the piers. And I thought we heard some very good news from Wildlife and Fisheries and NOAA, because it's going back in the same spot. They don't think their review is going to take that long. And the turtles and the sharp-toothed fish, I think, is the two that are choking us up out there. So that's good to hear from them, because they fall under their, I guess, umbrella. So that'll be good. The biggest one we're working on right now with environmental and scope and stuff is the blowout. Charlie's Pasture bulkhead ties into the revetment. We have drawings we're expecting from Urban this month for just to plug the hole on the temporary sheet, driving temporary sheet in there to plug the hole. And then we have a whole environmental workload in front of us for restoring natural habitat, sidewalks. So that's going to take a lot of time. You're talking about different birds, different seasons, different turtles, material that's got to come and be tested. It's going to be a while. So I think that's it for our projects. Ben, can you think of any even off? Any questions for us?
One more. In
Yes, sir.
reference to COVID, again with the subs, contractors, whether you guys, do you have teams in place, are they able to maintain their workforce pretty stable, or are you guys like everybody else, and you fall out?
We have, we've had a little bit of everything. We're starting to see more and more subs sending in delay claims. At first, we had the manufacturer for the handrails and stuff like that because of shipping. Now we're seeing crews because the local area is being impacted. So we're seeing subs, fencing guy, I think he's on his third attempt to get a crew out here, because each time we get the assigned crew and approve them, somebody tests positive. So we're seeing it, but the only thing that affects y'all is time. From our end, we're not just, all subs are still going through the same approval process. If they're changed, we still have to authorize them through administration. So it hasn't impacted us a ton, but it's coming. It's coming. It's affected FEMA. They haven't been on the ground in 4 months. Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a face-to-face meeting. We had our first Teams meeting on that shareholder. But we haven't had a face-to-face meeting, I guess, since March. But we still do get to talk to them. We still talk to them on a daily basis. I mean, we haven't, because when you start tying into federal agencies, believe it or not, like some can't do Zoom, some can't. Everybody seems to be getting to the Teams way, which is a little bit harder for us just from a technical standpoint, but we've got it kind of figured out. But at first it was who couldn't be on the call. So we've stuck to the old fashioned conference call. You step over each other a little bit, but it still works. The biggest interaction, and they are still coming out, should we call it and identify something, a chest of gold in McDonald Ball Field, they still have teams that will come out for those things. But as far as sitting down in meetings, reading the body language, having the interface, the new team, I know what they look like because of LinkedIn, but that's the only reason why. So that's a challenge when you you got to build a working relationship. So but money wise, I don't think it's affecting that besides time. I think that's it, David. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go to the COVID update, but I'm gonna try to stick to it as it pertains to goals and budget issues and let you guys.
Can't hear you, David.
All right.
All right, we're gonna jump on the COVID topic, but I'm gonna have Darla kick it off with just how it affects our budget. And then I'll jump back on and talk COVID issues.
So I finished the financials this morning for June. And as we kind of expected, since everything opened up at the beginning of May, our numbers are looking pretty good. We're really rebounding quite a bit. Our hotel motel tax for the month of May was at 36% from the previous May. If you compare it to 2018, we were up 75%. Yeah. I don't have 17 on my spreadsheet, but if I'm sitting, I can tell you in a minute when I go back to that computer over there. But, right, so our hotel motel tax now for the fiscal year to date is just down 6%. Last month, we were down almost 19%. So I think we'll make it up in June. And our sales tax, as you know, every month for the fiscal year to date has been down. For the month of May, we were at 36.7%. So we're down now 23.6 for the fiscal year. But as you know, our summer months are the months where we're getting the majority of our money. And I mean, I think with June, we're gonna pick up a lot again. So that, you know, the budget scare we had is really not coming to fruition too much, which is a good thing. So, is there anything else you want me to talk about in the budget? Yeah.
Yeah.
The governor said that we may close things down.
And if that happens, I mean, you know, we
What's the
had money to
question?
substitute for when it closes. Bruce just made the comment that he's heard the governor has stated he might close things down again. And if that happens, then what we
That's
had
very
in May-
real possibility today, by the way. That's just what I was into.
Yeah. So whatever we had in May, we don't typically have that could replace what we maybe have in late July or August if that happens. But right now it's not putting a big demand and crunch on our budget.
I think he's going to close some of the counties with the higher counts.
What's he gonna close?
Nueces
Everything?
will be one of them.
What will he close?
Everything. You'll lock it down.
So anyway,
6,174 cases today. And we've already, it's what? 134, and we've already had 4 die.
Just so y'all know too, it hasn't looked to be a federal, it is a declaration as far as being federally declared through FEMA. We had our kickoff meeting for COVID. We have not much to present from a budget standpoint, but if things start changing, there are those stopgap options that may be available for us if we need them. Disaster loans, that kind of stuff.
By the way, Nueces, according to the figures I just got, is the 9th highest ranked county in the state for COVID.
So is that just a quick recap on our COVID recovery? You know, as you guys all know, we had the beach closure to vehicles last weekend that ran from Friday to Tuesday morning. I think it accomplished what the county judge wanted, and that was to keep the day tripper number down. I think town was still pretty crowded. Definitely the day tripper number was down. I don't know what you guys saw in the restaurants and in the rentals, Chuck. Yeah. Yeah, so Chuck said that hotels were down. How much?
We were about 60, our occupancy was at levels of 60.
Oh, okay, so 60 to 70% occupancy in the hotels, and the condos did better.
The ones that were on the beach.
Yeah, especially the on the beach ones. So that's kind of what we were expecting. The day tripper numbers dropped. The mask or then the curfew ran for until Saturday morning at 6 a.m. That was a little bit harder to enforce on the city, just because, you know, with all the openings on the beaches and just, you know, only a handful of police at night, you know, it was pretty hard to keep the beach empty as we could, but the guys did the, you know, best job they could. Governor's orders that are currently in place, the mask orders in place. It's ongoing. And then, as the mayor said, we don't know what's coming down the pike. The governor did an interview last week. I think it was on Friday. And if you kind of read the tea leaves of that interview, he kind of put it out there, but you had to really read between the lines to hear what he's saying. But I think he was kind of saying, hey, I gave you guys a homework assignment. You didn't do that good. You know, so we'll see what he comes up with. I think he's got to try to get this thing turned around as much as possible. He's got 4.5 weeks to school. And so I think he'll make a stab at doing something to get, you know, to try to get us over the curve and heading in the right direction for when school kicks off. I think definitely, you know, you look around the nation, I think schools are definitely going to try to open. The TEA put out their guidelines that I think are going to be pretty strict. They want either butts in seats, or they want those kids, if there is some type of home option, they'll be definitely at the kitchen table from, you know, 8:30 to 3 o'clock, and they'll be doing roll count every hour or so. So I think it'll be a lot different than what it was for the kids back in March and April and May throughout the state. So we'll see what comes. We have been tracking the county and city, Corpus Christi and Nueces County Health District pretty close. The stats coming back on recovery, we're not getting really good information on that because they've just gotten too busy. And so recovery numbers have kind of fallen by the wayside, but and I think their contact tracing has gotten a little bit busy, where I just think they're overwhelmed with just new cases. So we don't see a lot of that coming out. We do have the 200, Fran, what was our number in our COVID budget? It's about 230K. And we're using some of that at, we're going to try to use some of it for, I know summer camp, because we hired kind of a COVID coordinator, and their job at summer camp is to monitor, clean, make sure protocols being followed. Those will both qualify. We've had to have additional vehicles, so those will qualify. And then we're potentially looking at using some of the remainder of those funds for possibly payroll help if we're rotating people home and trying to, you know, keep our numbers down in the offices. So we'll be using some of that for that. We had 4 cases in Public Works. I think we had 1 over the weekend, 1 on Monday, then 2 more on Tuesday. That's kind of leveled off. We haven't seen anything in about almost a week now. So those 4 at home, nothing new has come. So we're hopefully that's going to come and go for us. It was kind of sketchy there for a while, but
Public Works, is everybody on now quarantine in Public Works?
no, they're still coming. I mean, the 4 that are sick, of course, are home quarantine. Bruce asked what we were doing at Public Works, so they're still working. We were looking at, you know, possibly rotating, you know, shifts, and then implementing, you know, 1 driver per vehicle. So we're trying to spread them out. We brought in a professional cleaning team, and it's that electrostatic spray that wraps around everything. So we sprayed all of Public Works, we sprayed all the vehicles, we sprayed all the heavy equipment, we did the landfill. So we got them all sprayed and cleaned up. So hopefully we can nip that in the bud. And, you know, it was, I don't know, I think it was what, $2,500 to, yeah. And then we had everyone tested too. Fran set it up to, you really, if you want to get quick testing, we have a way we go, Fran can directly call the health district and they will accommodate city staff in getting set up. If we have first responders that need immediate testing, I believe, Rick, don't they go to the fire department or? Yeah, so if we need immediate testing for first responders, Corpus Christi Fire Department has that set up and we can immediately go and get them tested and get results right away. So we have a means of getting people tested pretty quick. Other than that, we're just watching and waiting, seeing what's gonna happen with the governor. Who, the governor? Beth asked when we might hear something. We do not know. Sometimes we'll get a tip from Todd Hunter or something. Hey, something's coming down the pike, but usually he'll get an update that something's coming, and Todd will notify the mayor and I pretty quick. But it's just hit or miss. Sometimes he announces ahead of times. Sometimes he just announces that morning that he's coming on the air, and you're like, whoa, big topic, something's coming up. So it's just.
Last time he closed the bar.
Yeah, last time when he did the bar closure, I was gonna take the day off that day, and I woke up Friday morning and I said, you know what, I think what's gonna hit the fan today. And so I went into work, and within about 20 minutes, the governor comes on and closes the bars. So yeah, so you just don't know. I mean, he's doing stuff that quick. Sometimes you get a little lead time. Sometimes it's just, he wakes up and does it.
I read an article that said that basically he's following Odessa, and so from Odessa.
Yeah, Bruce says he's following Odessa, Texas, but I don't know what that correlation would be.
It just said it was like a little microcosm. And
Yeah.
the problem there, then he realized the problem all.
Yeah, I mean, the state's the state is very different. I mean, you got some hot spots, like my parents live in College Station, and they're doing pretty good. They're starting to trend down. But they were bad early. They were like, when we were like nothing, they were back in April and May, they were like one of the bad spots. And now, we're doing this and they're doing that. So it's kind of, yeah. So we're watching things close. I'll try to get you guys updates as soon as we, get anything. Any questions on COVID recovery response? All right, we'll move to capital priorities by city council. And we'll just go down the line. So the way this is broken out, some of you submitted requests. And so Shannon, this is your first run at this. So what you guys can do and what you do in the past is you guys submit ideas, and then if it's something that we might need to go to the engineer with over the next couple of weeks, we can go crunch numbers and bring numbers back to you guys over the next month to let you know, like if, some of the ideas, what they might cost and how quick we can fund them. So I think there's about 15 items on here. And then the last item are ones that, ideas that aren't listed. And so we'll just start with item B. Yeah, jump in. I think that's Clark and Owens, Christmas decorations.
Yeah, this is there. Oh, no, this is. You're right.
By the way, basically, whatever, I know we discussed this right after hurricane about allocating some money. I did also send a message to
You don't have to repeat all that.
I'm sorry, can you hear me, Mayor? Mayor, can you hear me?
No, he can't. You can't hear Bruce, can you?
No.
Do you think our microphones are hooked up at all?
My computer says Port Aransas is muted.
Oh, you say we're muted?
Joe, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me, Joan?
I can hear David.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Where's the Port Aransas microphone? Oh, right. That's the image that's coming from that one.
Is everybody speaking into their microphone?
Yeah, I think, Bruce, put it right up to your mouth, see if that helps.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No, you still can't hear him, can you?
No,
I mean, otherwise, can you hear me now?
barely.
Hear you.
All right, do another test run, Bruce.
Okay, can you hear me now? Any better?
Yeah.
Hello?
I can see you.
Okay,
Charles, can you hear him?
I can barely hear Bruce. And I,
Can you turn up
Turned up
is your volume
all
turned
the
up
way
all the
up.
way?
yeah,
Is this any better?
No. Can you hear Chuck? Chuck, give a,
Can you hear me better?
no,
I can hear you better, but you got to speak right into it.
How about me?
I hear you fine.
Joan, you look very beautiful today. I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank
yeah, so
you.
you're booming over the microphone.
Well, unless you want to turn me up. Test, test,
I-
test. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
I
Hello?
can.
Don't you hear me? Mary, can you hear me? It's not.
No.
Well, can we just move forward and just repeat it later, or what do you want to do?
Turn your speaker up, Charles.
it's all the way up.
See, they're just going through this, right?
I guess. I don't know. Can you hear me, Mayor? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes?
Mayor, you can't hear Bruce?
I hear you and I hear Joan. I didn't hear
You
Bruce.
can't hear Bruce.
Maybe just
Yeah.
turn me up.
May have to walk. Sit down.
Yeah, it's gonna be a royal pain.
Yeah,
but,
just, you know what,
I mean,
Okay,
yeah, Beth, come on, talk for us.
okay.
Well, just repeat his comments, that's all.
yeah,
Well, my comment was I talked to the Chamber of Commerce and I thought that maybe we could do some kind of business tie-in, maybe make some kind of event to bring people down and use some of the money from donations from businesses to put towards Christmas decorations. We're not talking about a lot, but like we used to have some stuff like they did for the seniors, the signs on the poles and just basic Christmas decorations in town. I know we discussed this about 2 years ago and I don't think it ever moved forward.
so Bruce is talking about like some type of effort with the business community and the chamber and the city,
Yes,
in essence, right, Bruce?
yes.
Yes. And that's what I was curious. I
For
know we're
Christmas
thinking-
decorations,
Yes, sir.
For Christmas decorations? Is that what we're talking
Yes.
about? Parks and Rec also asked for that, so they were interested in that as well.
No, Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec put it on there for outsourcing to hang the lights.
Oh, yeah, Parks and Recs is to is to
Yeah.
outsourcing for their stuff that they typically decorate, like community center, city hall, the parks. So the Parks and Rec stuff is different than what Bruce is talking more the street stuff.
Yes, like
Yeah.
we did for the high school seniors with. those
Yeah,
pictures.
Bruce is talking more, Joan, the street pole decorations. The Parks and Rec stuff is the stuff that they typically decorate. So Bruce is talking about some type of partnership with the city chamber business community and doing the streets.
And that's what I'm curious, like with the hotel, I know it's very specific what we could spend money, but just like Fredericksburg, I mean, they go over the top decorated, which brings heads and beds
Yes.
that pay. Darla's looking at me like, no way.
No, well, it was,
But,
It's something that's gone to the state before.
yeah,
If you're gonna do hotel motel tax, it better be like Marshall tax.
well, what the thought was that we do They can do like a Christmas market specifically to bring people down here for the,
Yes, they can.
which is why I was trying, which is why I was tying with the Chamber of Commerce.
Right, the question, Mayor, was, how do you get the hot tax to buy it? But you have to kind of have some off the charts Christmas thing where tourists are coming in and come in specifically for your Christmas extravaganza.
Okay, can we like maybe just, put a thought process, if, I know our budget's tight, but if there's any money that we could allocate for Christmas decorations
We had
this year?
20 in this year.
Yeah, 20,000.
Did we use it?
Last year. I think we did use a lot of it.
What did we use it on? I don't think we bought anything last year.
I don't remember.
The year, when Dave was here,
We did the
bought
banners.
Tree and the banner.
Oh, we bought a second part of the tree, and some of it was replacement, but this year.
We're looking at what we spent this year, you guys.
We need some Christmas decorations. We need some Christmas trees.
But why can't businesses and join together with the chamber and do it, make it a really attractive?
We'll put something in our budget. We'll work on a number for you guys.
We got behind the
Yeah.
eight ball with the turnover.
Okay,
Parks
good.
and Rec to get it done.
Yeah. We'll make a good run at it and bring you guys the number.
It might be on discount right now in July. All right, let's move forward. I think we got the,
Okay, Joan, item C, funding for advertising for the Port A Art Center.
Okay, the Port A Arts Center has really had a large decrease in money this year because of having to close and not be able to have First Fridays and not be able to have their fundraising events at all. And they have really felt the need to get more funds to advertise and to bring more people in. When Ann Vaughn was chamber president, she gave $20,000 a year to the Arts Center so that they could advertise the arts and bring in more and more people. They sent me a list of visitors that they have, and in January they had people from all over the country. Some were Winter Texans, but not all of them, and many from Austin and Gonzales and various places in Texas. And it's a very beautiful museum. If you've been there, I'm sure everyone has been there now to the new museum. If you're there when there's not a First Friday going on, it's just like being in an art center. It is really a lovely place. And
how my insurance pays for it.
hot taxes are one of the major purposes for that uses, which is at 3A, is to promote the arts, expenditures to promote the arts. And I guess I would ask that we consider that. In talking to Rockport, their Center for the Arts in Rockport gets $130,000 a year. So they give a lot of money to help advertise and bring in more people from all over Texas and all over the country. And they claim that tourists that come in for the arts are a little bit higher class than those that just go to the beach. They spend more money and are more demanding of what they get. So I would propose that we consider again giving money, as Ann did, to help them advertise. Right now, they're in the hole, as you can imagine. Compared to last year, they're $60,000 less, and they still have to pay for that new building. So they're doing that all along, even though they are not able to have First Fridays anymore, and their sales are really down. So they appeal to me, and I'm appealing to you to consider some percentage that we could give hotel motel tax to help develop, mature, and promote the cultural programming in Port Aransas and bring in more tourists.
Has the chamber stopped all funding to the art center?
Yes, once Ann left, they did not give them a penny. Yeah. Yeah. So they have nothing for advertising right now.
Oh, that's right, because what does Sandfest usually give them?
20,000 a year.
Their major fundraiser was always over Memorial Weekend, which they also did.
So that they've lost lots in sales and lots in their classes. And I think, first Friday brought in so many people, they spent a lot of money and bought a lot of art, but they still have lots and lots of potential, and certainly as good as Rockport does. And they support Rockport's $130,000 a year, and Corpus
Yeah,
as
they
well.
have some big art weekends though, don't they?
Yes, yes. They have a big, well, they had to cancel it this year. The 4th of July is one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, because the city currently, we give the art center, $500, yeah, $1,500 a year.
Yeah, right. And that 20,000 they used all for advertising, and they could bring in
Yeah,
a
it comes
lot.
out of Hotel Motel Special.
Anyway, that's their appeal. I think it's a beautiful facility, and I think it could bring in a lot.
Yeah,
more
but
people.
using their facility, but yeah. The art center is the only group that gets just a stipend. They're the only group, and they've gotten it. It predates me. It goes back a long time. Yeah, from the city, and it comes out of Hotel Motel Special.
But 1,500 is not very much. Maybe we should increase.
They not run their Memorial Day fundraiser.
Because of COVID.
Gathering.
Because it's an outdoor, it was an outdoor festival that they always have. They have it at the Jerry McDonald Field, so number one, they
Got
have
it.
a
Didn't have it.
location.
Okay, got it.
Bruce was wondering why they didn't run their Memorial Day one, but it was, COVID.
Right. I mean, they were
Prevented them from
completely
running it.
closed at that time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're going to be able to do anything in the fall. Yeah, they had that street dance, and it was a moneymaker. And they have also planned, I think they were bringing in lots of money from the classes that they had, so that you would pay $50 to come paint something, and that money brought in a lot of people in. And then, of course, they get a part of the sales of all the art that's sold there. So the more you sell of that, the more money you get. So they're at least $60,000 in the hole this year compared to where they were last year. And of course, their payment for the building is continuing. So it's something that if we treasure that, if we think it's important, maybe we should up the spending on it again, or try to encourage the chamber to do it. I don't know if they would do it or not. Certainly, Jeff Hintz did not.
But I mean,
But if we give it to the chamber, they're taking down to 3%.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, it's kind of, yeah, I mean,
well, I mean, but we don't tell the chamber how to spend the money.
No.
And they just hired a new, I was going to take, they hired a new guy, I haven't read the thing yet, finals for him, but, we have he's something that they had a new candidate.
Yeah. Yeah, so Wendy, Bruce, and Darla were talking that it's the same, it's Hotel Motel, but we can't direct the chamber to do it because we don't control their budget.
Are we going to continue with the 0.25 increase to them that we did last year, the year before?
They probably need it more than ever now. And they do have, Bruce was saying they have interviewed, or no, I think he accepted he did accept the position, so they should have a new director soon.
Right,
he starts in August.
Starts in August.
right.
So here's my question, this is really a chamber issue, not a council issue, is that correct?
Well,
No, not
either
necessarily.
or.
The council could do it. You could take it from somebody and give it to them if you thought that was important, or I have no idea. I know it's
What's that?
limited.
Well, we'll at least let Darla look into it and see what she can come up with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Home city and Long Beach, the past, you know,
It was, when I was. with
Yeah,
the
chamber.
board for 6 years, we always gave a portion to the art center. I don't recall it being as high as $20,000, because that would be a significant gift to any organization, but there wasn't always, every year there was a donation to the Art Center to promote the arts, which is defined in the.
No, I understand that.
Let us find out what that number is. We're gonna find out, there's some question of what that number might be that the chamber gave. But we're gonna look into the history of it and see when it stopped and see how much it was.
And if there's something can be done, yeah.
Well, and here's my only thought to that, and I'm not opposed to that, I think the Art Center is an amazing facility, and I do think it does bring people in, and I think that, you know, that obviously all nonprofit organizations have been hurt by COVID. But I would ask that we look into that and do that, that we be fair to the community theater as well. Because it also represents the arts, and I just feel like we need to be considerate.
And let me just, as a board member, let me just mention that. I appreciate that, and I think, Peter, I don't know that I think that if we had to balance it right now, the Art Center is probably in a little worse shape.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that'll always be the case. So I mean, I absolutely think that if you support the arts, obviously the theater does bring people in. But I haven't heard the Art Center's in a bad way.
You were able to do your plays this
We
winter.
got a couple
then
of
it got
shows
shut
off.
Yeah, and then it's usually the kids' theater, which is huge too, but.
Anyway, we have to look at both of those as being able to bring in outsiders to come in to the city and increase tourism, heads and beds, because that's the important part.
The law states that however, it is not enough that a facility or event promotes the arts. Texas law requires that the arts-related expenditure also directly promote tourism in the hotel and convention industry.
Right.
So it has to
It have to be for advertising.
Yeah, you have to make the effort to put heads in beds.
Right. And
You
it's
know, it can't
amazing.
just
At
be
Rockport,
putting
it's
the article out in the local newspaper. It's gotta be,
Or to pay your building fund. It's gotta
yeah,
be-
yeah, it's gotta meet that criteria.
right. You have to have a big ad program throughout the country, probably.
All right, well, let us track down some of those topics with that.
Hey, thank you.
Okay, D, Clark and Owens, the rec center.
Well, yeah, well, you liked what I said, so.
Yes.
And really, I'm just more of this kind of straw poll. We had pretty much 99% of it all mailed out. We were actually gonna go to a vote on a hot tax increase for this, and hurricane hit, we just put it on hold.
So Bruce brought up, Mayor and Joan, that, just the kind of the history of it, that, we had worked pretty diligently in 2017. It was going to the voters at the August council meeting. We had approved the vote, and then we rescinded the vote after the hurricane.
Is there any interest?
And is there any interest to go back?
And we have to add too, it's not that we just came up with it right before
Yeah.
Harvey. This has been an 8-year
No, I know.
process in this community to try to do a rec center for the families that live here full time. And I personally feel like, especially going through Harvey in this crisis right now, I mean, it would be nice to have this community, have a recreational center for our full-time residents here. So, I don't know, I hate it's literally been 8-10 years of people trying to get this rec center.
Yeah, and
passed.
Beth was commenting that it's been a 8 to 10 year path on making progress towards the rec center.
For it to go away.
And that
now-
she'd hate
and
for
then
it to
my
go away.
question is, we were able to use that tax, or the 0.5% tax. Do we have to reapply now?
Well, we
Is that
never
still-
did vote on it. That was what you were voting on.
Okay.
We
Is
were,
it
we
even
were
still an
voting
option
on,
out there? Is that able to happen?
that was the option. The option was to use,
2% hot tax increase.
Has to be a facility that,
Yeah, and it
it's
was,
not for your citizens, it's a facility.
right, for everyone, obviously, yes, everyone would be open to it. But once that, I think back in the day, if we can remember, it was gonna take us 5 years to pay off, and then that goes away.
Right.
Or we could keep it
Something to that
and do
effect.
something else.
No, it was just to pay, 2% would be just to pay off the facility.
Right.
And then once the facility is paid off, then that money would go away. But the facility had to be I remember correctly, this is again a couple of years old, it would be like a gym or a facility like a ball field and they would do tournaments from around the state.
Which could happen so
And then
easily.
in the benefit, we'd also have some workout rooms, and we'd have some conference rooms that would be part of the things that they could be used. when they weren't
Right.
there.
So we were talking about the, where the funding was coming from. And if you guys recall, it was a 2% tax rate increase on hotel motel occupancy tax. And it was a 5-year tax, but the venue had to be scaled or had to be designed to where it was facilitating some type of tournament play that would bring in, people from outside.
Well, it could be basketball. It could
Yeah.
be cheer,
Yeah, it could be
dance,
cheer,
it could be
dance, basketball,
Boy Scout,
volleyball.
Girl Scout
Yeah.
convention,
Yeah.
whatever.
And that's what it was. It was primarily a larger indoor, basketball auditorium with a lot of seating, and then amenities such as weightlifting room.
And that would be open
You
to
know,
the public. when
Yeah,
they
open to
were-
the public, but
And then had a teen center.
yeah, teen center.
Now, a couple things have changed, so we'll full disclosure here. I know that Ms. Decker was a very big proponent of doing this stuff. I know since she's now gone to own her own gym, and there might be competitions, that might change things as well. Change the dynamic.
That's one individual. I mean, this is
No,
a.
But I'm saying, but it's just that, that is one of the things that at the time there was no weight thing, and now the person has done
Oh,
it.
there's always been, I mean, Murphy, yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah, I
always been
understand.
things.
I'm not saying it's not a deal killer.
I'm just
Yeah,
saying people
it's
who have it-
a quick, you would have to call that election in August. So you would have you'd have about a month to pull this off.
Well, which is why we're discussing it. It may
Right.
be that we decide that, no, we don't want to do it. It's not the right time, or no one cares. So,
What are you guys talking about?
Well, we were talking about, Mayor, with the rec center, like if you were trying to pull the trigger on it, you'd have to do it by August to call a November, because I think it had to be at a November election. It couldn't be at your off May election.
So we would have to wait until next year if we
Well,
didn't.
that depends on when you guys would try to do it.
Well, I think we'd be laughed out of town right now if we tried it.
I thought that was the point that we wanted it.
It's, I mean, people aren't,
More votes.
what are you worrying about a rec center for when people are dying? It just makes no sense. I'm already
there's always going to be.
the head over all this stuff. I don't want to get beat up anymore.
There's always going to be something. There's going to be hurricane, or there's going to be high taxes, or there's a million reasons not to do it.
How could we decide to do it next year? I mean, if you decide now to do it for next year, then you can get prepared and get ready to have an election and do all of that instead of just try to do it in a month or two. I agree, we should consider it.
You large supporters of this with someone who may or may not be for it. So I know the people won't be on council next year. Are opponents of this.
I have a question about the process, David. So we passed, so 3 years ago after the hurricane, we passed a resolution in support of moving forward with the rec center, but more importantly, moving forward with pushing for the 2% special venue tax.
Yeah, Right, you
Is that
called
still-
for an election,
But we passed the resolution first, then we passed the ordinance calling for the election.
then you rescinded it.
Or rescinded it
Yeah.
because of the.
Right.
So once you pass the resolution, how long does that stand? I know we rescinded the ordinance, but once we pass the resolution, could we then move with the same purpose, the same intent to call for a special election for the 2% special venue tax, which all it really does is say that we want to have the election. It doesn't say
You
that we're gonna
could,
build it right away, but by passing the ordinance and getting it on the ballot and having it, say, theoretically approved in November, it allows us to start charging the hotel motel tax, which then allows us to start incurring the income to then move forward on a project. We don't have to start building it right away, but at least we pass the tax and start collecting the income, and then move
I
forward with either the
think
same-
you can't do that. I think you have to build within, you have to break ground. I remember we discussed that last time. You had to, that was a no-no. You had to start like immediately with architectural, going out
Yes.
to bid. You had to be on track to get that thing built.
But we have that. We have that. And I'm not saying that's the same thing we want to do, but we still have that. We
Have
that
what?
whole plan. Well, we have the whole plan that we did before, kind of modeled. So it wouldn't be that much
Right.
of an arduous process.
Right, but you can't pass the resolution and then sit back and just collect the money.
No, but what,
No,
Right.
I know that, but what I'm saying is we've done a lot of the hard.
No, we
work.
have. We've done the
I mean,
layout.
it's right there at
I know,
That's
it
the thing.
was, we
the-
got all the way to
It
the,
still has to go to a vote for the public. The
Right, but-
public
Right.
may say,
if
no,
they
I
turn
don't
it down,
want
then
it.
it's a dead, it's dead.
I'd be shocked.
well, here's the thing with the resolution. You could have someone right now, even if you said the resolution's valid, you could have someone say, I'm gonna undo that resolution, and they could put it on the agenda. At
But
next month's
we'd have
meeting.
to vote, we'd have to vote for it if that was the case.
Right, so I mean, to me, you redo the resolution, that's easy. You know, if you guys have the votes to redo it, you would just throw it up, throw it out there.
Okay, but to do that, you're saying timing wise, we can't do it by July, right? Because that's this week. So we have to do it, and it has to be on either a special meeting or by the August general meeting.
Yes, you would need to, if you were moving down the path, you would have to pull the trigger by the, what's our meeting date, the
Well, but I think
24th?
August 24th, our meetings are due, but August 24th, I think is the.
Yeah, it's the same as the tax.
Yeah, but aren't we gonna have a couple tax meetings for
Yeah.
July as well?
I mean, you got time, you could just, you could throw up that same exact resolution of approval that you did back in August of 2017. It's one vote at council. And that would be the vote to
Have the special election.
have the special election in November.
But to have the special election and to move forward, would we almost want to have the exact same plan? Guys, pull out
You
the plan
probably
from
would,
Oswald,
you,
or
yeah.
do we have another plan?
I don't know what the current, the current Parks and Rec director has mentioned changes, but I don't think you could go that route. I don't think you could, you don't, like you said, we don't have time to redesign this whole thing. You'd basically have to go with the former, we had a layout. The layout gets put in the paper. So they're voting on a pretty dialed in concept. You may be able to tweak the location here or there, but the last time we had it kind of tied in to where it was kind of nestled up against the pool area. And then there was kind of a big loopy drive around. I don't know how much that would change, to tell you the truth. I don't know how much the facility would change. I mean, you need an audit. I mean, that facility, the main component is the auditorium and seating. That's what sells it as an events facility. You can't do away with that. The other stuff was almost the amenities, the weight room, the locker rooms, a yoga room, a little kitchen, and that's just amenities.
Well, I was to say, I think people's property are probably maybe out in their situation in the city.
What do you say?
Get voted on.
That the people who own the property are probably motivated to see that it goes forward.
Well, one option is, Fran, when's our deadline for Thursday's council meeting? You could have yeah, you could add that to Thursday night's conference meeting, just so we have a chance to, yeah.
Now, just another question, what does the city take? Just, I know there's more work to do.
What are we discussing here?
Well, Bruce is asking what the workload is for staff to pull it off, to pull off.
Jeez, are you kidding? Huh.
Yeah, Yeah.
I'm sorry,
one-
guys.
no one-
You're in
no one here is
fantasy land.
disagreeing. The timing's not bad.
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
Don't live in fantasy land, guys. This is serious shit. I'm sorry.
well, I mean, you know, that's what I said, it's here, it's.
Put it off to next year when we can think about it after all we bury all these folks.
You can't do a special, it has to be, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, you have, I think you have council that's not, you know what, I think we put it to the voters and see what happens.
Well, I think you first have to start by putting it on council.
Well,
agenda.
yes.
Yeah, we'll put it on, you guys can discuss it Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have more, I'll dig up the old, I need to go dig up that old information on that. Yeah,
That's what I was saying, if I can mark and just see and make. Right.
And it does- and it's
This is not about business anymore. It's about lives.
We're not about this, this is.
Takes a secondary step to this right now.
So anyway.
well, all right, so we'll have an agenda item on Thursday night's council meeting, and you guys can further discuss it. Okay, item E, we're gonna move to signage, city signage at the entrance and exit of the ferry stacking project. So I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a great, as you're at the intersection there, it would be the south side, which is part of this project. It's the south side of, what's that business that's there?
Life in Paradise.
Life in Paradise is a large tract, and in the initial design, we had thought that that was going to be the entrance into the ferry stacking, but since they've moved that further down Port Street, now you have a really good big area right there that we could put a, exiting, that would be the exiting sign, correct? So that we could put a really neat exiting Port Aransas sign there, and then entry, you're thinking entry is,
Well, no, I mean, I think what we need to do, and every time I don't come on and off the ferry a lot, but,
Yeah.
but I think, now you can conceptually see the exit part, right? You can see the entrance to the ferry, but I
Yeah.
think coming off, once those lanes get reworked, I think there's gonna be plenty, I mean, we're not talking,
Yeah.
the whole half football field, but plenty of room to put just a really nice sink. Kind of like what we've been talking about for years, just a welcome to Port Aransas.
Yeah.
Kind of, lightly landscape, but real nice and pretty, just something that pops when you're just coming off the fair. Maybe, and again, I don't know, David, if there's a map or something, but, I don't know that there's gonna be a lot of space obviously there's no space to the right.
Yeah.
When you're coming off because of the way that.
we used to
Yeah.
think that we called it Mount Port A when you came in just near the stripes, but that's going to be gone.
So, but I think there's probably a little space there to the left as you're next off one direction, not to block that's business by any means, but I still think there's, maybe a little bit of space there, but it's hard for me to see conceptually
Yeah.
until the roads are.
Can you park and get out and take a photo like you talked about?
No way, I think.
So
you
just a
create-
nice,
Just
welcoming, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. I know.
No, and maybe there's somewhere else, and I still think that's a good idea. Maybe as the park itself gets reworked, Roberts Point Park, maybe there's
Have
a
an
pickup
area.
photo spot for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, what about that little berm, like where you go on the ferry now, right by the harbor, there's like a berm between the deep sea.
I believe that's best property.
No,
No.
not deep sea. between
No,
the
but
sea
that's just,
and the boat ramp, there's a like little narrow berm, and some kind of welcome Port Aransas, so people get out from there. But you're gonna come off, and you're gonna be on the left-hand side, you see it, come this way, it'd be right here, welcome to Port Aransas.
But I don't know if you want to make it to where people get out there, because
Well,
there's no
they're-
place to park, and you're gonna get.
They're gonna be in the harbor, they would be in the harbor. We'll have to go concept look later.
Yeah, I know the strip. There's just no parking there.
No, but you would park behind it and then you can walk back out in front of it. Like where you.
That's a really thin strip.
It is. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
It's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Backside, I can't visually see where you guys are talking about. So from the front, when it says welcome to Port A, from the backside, you just coming or.
Well, you don't exit there.
Yeah, it's gonna be over here.
The exit's gonna be over here, it's just the ferry.
So we need two signs, a welcome and an exit sign.
Well, let me work some numbers for signage and,
I definitely
Bring
love
some-
signage.
yeah.
I love
I just think
nice
especially
welcoming things.
with that new spot up there. it's
Yeah.
an awesome opportunity to really make something nice
yeah, that spot's really cool, the one for leaving.
for leaving.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice.
I love, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Item F, airport improvement plan for runway extension. I can give an update on where we're at on that.
Great, yeah.
Don't we already
So-
have money for that?
Oh yeah, that's funded. We are in our third attempt at a core permit. And it has been the worst core permit I've ever experienced. I mean, we're going on 6 years. Yeah, well, the port and all the oil industries are cutting to the front of line. That's one problem, is that anything with energy is front of the line. So we keep getting back burner, but I have recruited some additional help to help with the permit up in Austin. And it's just been, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's been a complete fail. I mean, the money's still there. You know, we meet about once every month and a half. So the money's still there, the 5.2 million. And we've been using our match as engineering. It's just the permit is just, it's been through multiple, it's been given to multiple permit, people at the Corps. And it just, when, you spend 2 years working on one submission and then it gets chewed on pretty hard and you basically start from scratch and you start the whole 18-month process over again. And we're on our third round of doing that.
Are they like claiming wetlands or is it just not getting done?
It's wetlands. Yeah, it's the wetlands. I mean, we've reduced it 3 times. 3 times we've reduced our impact and redone our permit. The original concept was extend the taxiway all the way down. That was the first round. That one got really beat up. And then we pulled that back, probably reduced wetland impacts by about 75%, submitted that permit. It got totally chewed up. And then we've pulled it back and now we're on our third submission. And our third submission is close, but we're still 6 years into this process. Luckily, the money's still there with TxDOT Aviation. So it's still funded and our match is good.
When you talk about mitigation, where were we before proposing the mitigation coming from? Or where were we, you know what I'm saying?
The mitigation, it will be in a mitigation bank.
Okay,
Yeah,
it wouldn't be any physical.
not on
location,
site
And there's
because
not,
because you really don't want to do enhancements on site that attract birds. That's one of the problems is that when you dig out wetland, you try to get mitigation points through digging out and making wetlands better and more, but you don't want to do that on an airport. So you really go off-site for all your mitigation because you don't want to draw birds. You don't want to make the wetlands better on your airport site because you attract the birds and then you start giving.
but there's not with the property that we acquired, the GLO tract of the
Yeah.
apartments, is there not any of that you could use?
No, even that's too close.
That's too close.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
there's water all behind it already. that
No, I
goes
know.
in.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So, I mean, it's moving. It's just grinding along at a snail's pace.
We can't mitigate, it's not thing, but like some of the wetland or park area that we have the trails.
No, it doesn't count because they look at the nature preserve as it's already protected. So why would we let you count that towards, they want good dirt that's not protected, that you're converting.
Yeah, I know we got some good dirt. Got that property from,
The beach we got from the.
Oh, right.
A lot of that's wetlands too.
I'm saying that we can enhance those wetlands. They want to be.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
It's already, a lot of it's not useless, but less useful to us, it's a good way to mitigate there and it's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been the mitigation that tripped us up. It's just been getting the Corps to get off their butts and do work for our permit.
Like
That's been the problem.
I will say the flip side is probably what the fourth one here. Seems like they're more willing to do stuff than they were past us now.
Who, the port or the Corps?
The core.
Yeah, I think the energy permits that pay to get to the front of the line, that really hurts us. Really hurts us because they're all going through the expedited permitting process, which means everyone else gets put on hold and energy permits move to the front of the line. And it just keeps happening over and over and over again.
Is that like 10% of the whole deal or were they charged for expedited?
Oh, it's I think 50%. It's pretty expensive. Yeah, they make good money letting people cut to the front of the line.
Okay, so the point of me putting it on the agenda was not because I don't think that we haven't been doing something on it, was more to bring it up and to say, was there something that we need to be doing additionally? Was there any additional funds that we need to put in this year's budget
Yeah.
to try to move the project along?
No, we don't need, yeah, we don't need any additional funds. I have recruited some help. So we got a good pilot person who's a former state person in Austin, who's trying to work the permit up in Austin for us.
Okay. Well, as long as,
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't need to put anything
Yeah,
else
it's
in
not
the
it's
budget,
not a budget issue.
all right. Okay, so again, I mean, not that, I mean, I know this is part of FEMA, this is all part of, initial design and everything we're gonna do down there, but I just wanted to have it on there to discuss it and to see if, again, there was something we needed to put additionally in the budget, if we thought this was all gonna be able to go through some kind of FEMA plan. And some of the things that, for that area, obviously I live very close to there, so I see it all the time. And there's so much potential to turn it into a really, great, not that we want to make it the next, Roberts Point Park, but, if we need to put some additional money in there to help fund more nature preserve stuff or whatever. So I guess if you have an update on maybe what the plan is. that would
On
be
Charlie's,
helpful.
on the bulkhead.
Right, on the bulkheading and.
So, all right, so we've moved on to item G, and Mayor Pro Tem Moore is asking what the status is of Charlie's Pasture Pier Nature Preserve Area bulkheading. I'm gonna let Michael jump in.
When I saw this on the agenda, I went back and I have some copies I can provide, but I went back and looked at the nature preserve just to refresh my memory on everything. So everything mentioned here, I'm confident is in a project. There are multiple projects associated with it. I'll go through those in a minute, except pepper tree removal. We tried to do our best with what we could when we were removing the debris behind the outfall because it was interfering there. So it made it eligible. But other than that, there's nothing in policy or grants for pepper tree. But so if you're going to look at that, would be the place to look outside the federal grants that I can assure you is nowhere else to be found. Now, I'm not going to say improvements. We are mitigating some things throughout the nature preserve. So the hope is once we plug the hole, that eventually we're going to get to the fill. I want to show that I think it matters. I want to show, I don't think it's in this, but behind where the blowout occurs, all that lost land, basically to the pavilion. So this part has not fully been accepted because of the environmental things that bird nesting, sand, they call sand something.
The algal flats.
Flats, that's what, not bars, sand flats and stuff. So what we proposed last to FEMA is basically, here's your
That's the blowout over
Yeah,
there.
there's your blowout. So we're gonna come in with the bulkhead here to the revetment. That's all, the way it stands now, that's all to be replaced in kind.
Yeah.
Sorry. So where the blowout is. If you know
There's the blowout.
So that will put a rock barrier behind it, in the bulkhead. And then really what we're doing to beef up the bulkhead from the non-damaged portion is we're going, I think it's 3 or 3.5 inches up on the sidewalk, the back wall. That's really what hit us last time. All this that you see in the lines has been proposed to be refilled. That's what I was talking about earlier. That's where you got to get local dirt. You got to prove where it's coming from. You got to test it.
And do you have to fill that back in? Can it not just stay as like a, I mean, I don't know what the rules are, but I mean, is that, I would think now that that's a wetland or a pond, they would want you filling that in now. I mean, I don't know.
Well, they do. It depends. The environmentalists do because the birds coming to the area are down through reports, and Colleen needs to really kind of.
This is one of very few places where migratory birds can do their nesting.
Yeah. It's all of those reports are down. So we got a FEMA buy-in to at least to track this area. Are they going to fill all this? We're not there yet. That's why I'm bringing it up now. But you have to fill a large gap behind it no matter what, to be able to do the bulkhead.
Well,
But yes, sir.
how close is the pavilion getting ready to fall in?
30 feet.
It's there.
Huh?
I
It's
was
there?
this weekend. I was there this weekend there was larger chunks of land that have fallen recently, and it's close. David just said 30 feet.
30 feet, my good.
I
What
think that's being generous.
and delay that collapse of that building?
Well, we're working on that. If we get this thing from Urban on the plug, we get this temporary sheeting down, we're not going to have the ship wave action, right? We're gonna turn the action back out of there.
That'll stop the erosion.
You got to hope that, and that's why I went out there this weekend. You got to hope that the piers that the actual pavilion's sitting on are not just relying on the land, which I'm sure they are. So you may have some underwash, but how much can you afford and handle against that wave action, because they weren't built for necessarily wave action. So we've also put FEMA on notice. We lose this pavilion. There was no preventative measure other than what we proposed, and you have to give the answer for us to take what we proposed to completion to stop. There is no other. Can't go in and sandbag. We can't go in and fill. I mean, it's wet. It's wetlands full of endangered birds. I mean, it's the worst case scenario for trying to do a federal project.
No, but you saw the giant bag sitting out in Roberts Point Park.
Yeah.
So we've got a plan in place. We've talked to FEMA again as of Wednesday. We have documented the pavilion and the condition it's in. But it's getting close. But I do think even when it hits the land, and this would be a better urban question, but you'll have some peer support for longer, I don't think forever. I don't think it was built for that.
But the proposal is to put in some kind of temporary bulkheading until you can get the wall, I mean, the real revetment and bulkheading.
Right, the sheet pile, the temporary sheet pile has to go in for the repair anyway.
Yes.
So if we can get that put in, it stops the erosion.
Because there's boats back there. I mean, I see boats go back there.
Oh, yeah.
I see ship traffic. I mean, people go back there in their boats.
Well, and Jim said that the flat bottoms can get back there now. I mean, it's the reason. Yeah, the reason why the temporary sheet pile is being proposed in a phased approach is we're trying to loosen up some of the environmental issues we have for an overall project. You're talking about the revetment, that's GLO coordination with a different FEMA team. We're on calls with them once a month, just making sure our coordination's even tight. So the whole purpose here is basically you put a Band-Aid out there, but you had to put the Band-Aid no matter what. So you're just doing a little premature to the bulkhead work. So it's not a duplication of effort or something that wouldn't be done anyway, but it is an attempt to save some land loss. And the only thing that we're doing with the temporary sheet pile that would be different than the construction is putting that riprap just as a backstop to the sheet metal. So a lot of the stuff in the nature preserve is covered. Now, the signs will look like the signs looked before, but there's a different idea. That's where you've got to go. The material in the walkways is going to be a different material for mitigation. So it's going to be a heavier grade. It's actually, and I have the backup, what y'all did on the new phase. So you see what it'll be. And then the other change that has been through mitigation, I'm pretty confident with, is I call it Trek board, but it's the polymer, it's the plastic versus the wood walkways that look like honeybees that flow through. That has been approved to go where the old walkways were wood walkways to the top. So there's a lot of stuff that's being done that if you could visualize through phases and just, it's an environmental, it's probably one of our trickiest project, if not the trickiest project, because it sits through wetlands. And then there's, like I was telling you earlier, bird seasons, nesting, you know, sea turtles, stopping when you see them during, I mean, it's got every box you can check on the federal form. We got it in the nature preserve. So that's why that timing of that project is still where it is.
Well, congratulations for doing that. I think that is an amazing thing to do and an important thing to do.
Well, and we have Colleen engaged in all of that. She's on these calls. She was on our shareholders call. So there's a lot of coordination occurring through that process with Jim Urban. Wendy, you had a question?
Well, I just, I see people that wander into the pepper trees and I don't know what they're doing in the pepper trees, but they wander back out of the pepper trees. And maybe it's because they don't have a place to have some private time, but anyway, if there was a way to remove some of them, at least down the walkways too, because there's so much overgrowth. And I know we haven't had time and, other priorities, but if there was a way to at least remove some of them because they cover up the walkways and trails and all that stuff. And it would be nice if there was a way to, if we had a pot of money to do some pepper tree removal down there.
Wasn't pepper tree removal last time, wasn't that Texas Parks and Wildlife, not federal?
It was Rebuild Texas, if I remember correctly. It was that pot of money that came right after the storm from the.
Thought it was before that.
Texas A&M Forestry.
We created the invasive species. What was the name of that?
Joan, what was the name of the invasive species?
That Texas A&M Forestry Service and.
No, the one we created here.
Yeah.
Remember, it was the first one in Texas. It was called.
I can't remember the name either.
But that's the arm that goes out and looks for grant money. And then, so it's a combination of that outfit and then, that Colleen sits on and also Ray. And then they work with Coastal Bend Bays and estuaries a lot. And then they go after Texas Parks and Wildlife Funds, NOAA. I mean, anything they can get their hands on is what is funded pepper tree removal in the past. And they're constantly looking for funding.
And what, Bruce, that, because we did it hand in hand with the bid. TFL was the bid. So I know that Colleen would verify that 100%, but I'm pretty sure it was Rebuild Texas the last time we did it with TFL doing it. Now, I will say this, any place that those pepper trees are in the walkway area now for construction, should they hamper any operations we need, or we need to maneuver through that area, we would get that area covered. But it's an invasive tree. It's not going away, no matter how many times you cut it.
Knock out a big portion of them, then maybe they wouldn't go back.
But to speak with David, Colleen, she's one of the best we've ever worked with. She's always finding grants I've never even heard of before. So, but there's no FEMA grant that I'm aware of.
But all the other things, improvement-wise, behind the bulkheading, the big holes that are still there, maybe putting.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but the area when it's done is going to be nice. That sidewalk is really going to be aesthetically pleasing, even though it's doing a engineering job. The road fixed. I mean, when we get to it, it'll pop. But it's just going to take some time. I would. Yeah.
I was thinking, I was just saying, that just maybe we should go back to the money. Yeah, I'm sure Colleen is someone who would be real good at digging that stuff up.
Right. I noticed that the pepper trees are removed where our new apartments are going to be, That was pretty nice, clearing those all out. David?
I just find some money, because I know they're doing it, there was an eradication program, they were, paying money to go dig up trees or something,
Right.
right away and stuff, so maybe do that some more.
All right, we'll keep looking.
Okay, thanks.
Joan, it was the CWMA, the coastal weed management area. Does that sound right?
Right.
Okay.
That sounds like coastal weed management. Yeah.
Yeah, CWMA, something like that.
And the guys over at UT are highly involved in that. Katie.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, item H, funding for street improvement drainage projects. Yeah,
Well, I think it's something that Chuck has brought up as well, and I know that, again, we, got various projects going. Last year, what I did was I went back to the last 3 budget workshops and tried to look for areas that we brought up in the past, things that we had talked about in the past that we didn't get to. And so this was one of those items that we brought up several times over the last budget workshops, and either, we didn't get to them, we didn't do them because, we had FEMA help pay for some of them, or, all these things that come up. And I know in the past, we put money aside to help with it, just maintenance and things like that, so we don't have to do complete road repairs. So I want to make sure that, number one, we put some money, to that for budget purposes. But number two, if there were a big project or two that we needed to put in this year's budget, if we had the ability, that we would talk about them. Last year, I think Urban had already drawn up there was like a Ross Avenue and
It's-
Avenue
yeah.
E and those kind of things. So,
it'd be a bond.
right, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, if that's what we need to do. So
Right.
But I just wanted to bring them up at this meeting so we could talk about,
Yeah.
what
And a lot of times we've done the bond votes at the May meetings. So if you guys do want to move that, and we're talking about streets and drainage projects, Joan and Charles, but yes, we would move forward with a bond if you guys want to do that, which it's good because we have a little time to work on that. But I think like Ross, some of our FEMA projects, some of the bad streets are in the FEMA, but there's others that are just still on our street inventory list that we put together back in 2007 that we've been systematically doing. And when was our last street bond? Was 16, right? 16?
16 was the Avenue A and Avenue
Yeah,
C.
16 was Avenue A and Avenue C. So it's been 4 years.
But we have one paying off in 2022.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I would like to see
Yeah.
that because we don't ever want to be like other communities, that
Yeah.
are in trouble. And we all know that we still have to bring Jerry.
so let's, as an action item for this one, I'll get with Jim. And this is something that we'd study over the fall and then bring back to you guys at some point, after the beginning of the year and say, hey, here's a good idea of how we would want to proceed. And if you guys wanted to move forward with doing a street and drainage bond, then I think you got to call that by February. You'd call it by February, and then you have to do your due diligence and you have to do the promotions, and then you'd put it to the voters at the May election.
Dave, let me remind you that we have the stormwater management program right now, plan that is we hired Freeze and Nichols to look at stormwater runoff in Port Aransas and to come up with ideas to help us manage the flood and the water quality that's going out into the bays. And that presentation, I think, is going to be Thursday at the meeting by them. Their first preliminary ideas and suggestions for changes in a lot of things for the city to do that. So we should also include that thinking into the planning with Jim.
Yeah.
David, I think the timeline will allow for us to get a better idea of what is funded and not.
Okay.
Right now, to try to tell you that.
Right.
I was trying to recall, so I know we had that 11th Street discussion. That was a new development, and there was some drainage. That was one of the things that came up, and there was some talk of.
Oh, 12th Street.
12th Street House.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, anyway, I'll just, make sure that was still on the radar. And I believe there was some discussion that there was already something in place. That's good, yeah.
Yeah, the 12th Street drainage fix is one of the urban drainage that's in the,
I'll get David your list today.
yeah, that's in the CDBG.
Well, CDBG's the match, HMGP.
Oh, yeah,
That's what we're
HMGP,
doing, the
yeah.
Historical loss and stuff that having to calculate.
Hey, David,
Yes, sir.
take notes for me. I've got a problem with the Stripe stores now. Just take notes for me,
Okay.
all right?
Bye, Charles.
Oh, with the Stripe store.
But what I was saying, that he had that whole list that he brought to y'all last year, and it was prioritized. I know we got the first 2 or 3. I think we got through priority 3, which was actually 5, 4, 3. But that's where the grant was applied from, was Jim Urban's list from last budget hearing. But what we're struggling with right now is there's a lot of information from FEMA that we keep asking the state to get us, and we're struggling to get our hands on it. That's why we don't have that answer. But we ask about it weekly. That helps. But we have those lists.
Well, again, the only reason I brought it up is because we're in budget workshop, so I know some of this is FEMA, some of this will be future planning, but if there was something that we need to put in the budget now, then I, wanted to make sure we had the money to do that.
And like, this is always like the wish list of things that we want,
Yeah,
not what's
well,
going to happen, so.
Yeah, budget workshop. We won't get it if we don't ask to put it
That's
in there.
exactly correct.
Okay, item I, additional staff for in various departments.
And again, this is one of the things that we brought up last year, and I know that, it's always an evolving thing about what you need and what departments, and y'all always done a good job of trying to fill those needs. Darla finally got her assistant. I'm assuming everything's still good there, right?
Yeah, we
So-
did we did P&Z, one in building department
Right.
and one in finance.
Is the city under a hiring freeze, or is that in the?
Well, we're still under the freeze, but we have been filling, if it's a critical position, we fill it.
So it looks like last year we talked, there was a general administrative assistant who we hired, building permit clerk who we hired, school resource officer who we hired, K-9 operations. And then we were looking at, we redid some director of public works and groundskeeper and things like that. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we had, particularly with all the things going on in Port Aransas and future plans and development and, the conference center and all the things projects we're having on, I wanted to make sure that we had enough help for David. And perhaps, Rick's department, not necessarily for a clerk, but for someone who had a little more experience. And I think at some point it might be a good idea for us to think about having an assistant city manager. And maybe someone that has.
Yeah.
Names like you had.
I'm dead
Yeah,
serious.
no, I know. I've been,
I think that our town is very ready for that position, and perhaps hiring somebody that has similar planning and development experience like David has, that would help and assist either the planning department and or David. I think that would be crucial because we still have a lot of projects, and I know that our wonderful consulting team does a huge part of that.
yeah.
But, if I would like to see if we can put the money in the budget for that role, I think that would be something to go out and look for.
I agree. And we have to have David and Darla on those calls, so just because we're doing the work.
That's what I'm like, yeah.
They have to be a representative as a consultant. Just so
We don't want
I agree. It's important. I consider it.
They use that as their out, so I have to chase Darla.
No,
David
but
down.
that also takes up your time from your day-to-day job, and so I think that,
What'd you say, Joan?
I said, I agree that I think we ought to consider an assistant city manager to help through the planning and.
Well, let's let Darla crunch the numbers on it.
And we're not gonna go hire one tomorrow, but I mean,
Yeah.
you know, like, you say put out a request for someone with qualifications, so that you and you start them off with planning zoning, and they work there for a year or two, kind of.
Speak into the microphone and I can hear you.
So is that something that y'all would agree that we could put, that maybe have Darla look into? David, would you be
Yeah.
open to having?
Yeah,
an
of
assistant
course.
city manager?
Of course, you have to train him. That's all you have.
Yeah.
Her.
Okay, sorry, here's item J is funding for comprehensive plan review. That's also been one of those.
A new person can do.
You had an assistant, David, maybe,
Yeah.
that, you know, they could do, that could be their job. But I do think it's serious, and I do think it's, you know, one of those things we talked about. So if it is something that we feel like it could be a paid consultant, you know, I know it takes a lot of time and that's not the easiest way to do it. But I just thought if we could put some money in there.
Is there consultants that do that for you?
Yes.
It is, but you can't rely on them. When I first got here in 2005, there was a nice, fat, brand new coastal or comprehensive plan in the garbage that the city spent, I think, about 150,000 on. And I'm not lying, it went straight into the garbage. I don't think it was so bad, it was never approved by council. It was by I think it was WRT. And it was a ton of work, ton of community effort, and it was never approved. Because it was right when a city manager got terminated and the next guy came in and just said, this thing is like, this was, you guys paid some out of town firm to just do some giant kind of rubber stamp and really not get involved with the city, and they didn't do it correctly. And the new city manager came in and just scrapped it, and it never even was approved at council. So yes, there's firms that will gladly take your money and do you a comprehensive plan, because you can basically, you know, they have them sitting on in their computer and they just go in and change the city name. So yeah, you can pay a lot of money for a comp plan.
Well, I remember also one of them you had, and that might have been talking about that, because I was on TV at the time, you did a bunch of like zoning maps and.
That was when we correctly pulled it off. When we did it, we redid it in 2008. We started all over. And
I remember at the very end, like the firm.
it was Freeze and Nichols.
Yeah, well, we were using, I thought like the gentleman who we were using quit or went to form a new company or a company out of business, something crazy happened. And it like got delayed or whatever. I don't remember.
He did.
exactly.
He went and it was the guy who did the all the traffic study and all the future land use maps. They ended up, he went and formed his own company, but we did pull it off. I mean, we got everything approved, but it was, 3 years of work. It was a lot. It's a big effort.
It is a lot of work. Now.
It's a ton of effort on your planning and zoning commission. Is really, it falls on them, and it falls on, your P and Z is creating some community outreach boards. And so you're getting a lot of input. A lot of people like to start with a brand new vision statement, but you got to be really careful that you get a good vision statement. I mean, we've had a couple here. We had a really good vision in 1999 that went into all the 2002, 2003 zoning changes that they did, like your CZ2 overlay. And when you go back and you look at that list of people who were on that community visioning, it was such a huge group, and it was representation from every group on the city, business people, fishermen. I mean, it was really well represented, and that's what you have to be really careful. There was a follow-up revisioning in 2004. That was not a very selective, it was extremely selective group of people in town. And if you ask me, it was kind of a hijacking, and it was more of your green side. And it totally revamped all the visioning, and it really skewed it in one direction. And it was so bad when it got to council, they just said, we're not approving it. So they did all this work, and it was a select group in town, and it didn't get accepted. So you got to be really careful when you kick off a zoning, that you typically kick it off with a visioning statement, but you got to make sure your community is, from one end of the spectrum to the other, is ready to participate, because the worst thing you can do is have a skewed group of people who, I'll use the word hijack, but who are the dominant group, who are ready to come out and work, and you get a very skewed product, and it'll end up going to a council and it'll end up in the garbage can. So you got to time a comprehensive plan and a vision statement when your community is good and ready to commit. And because if you don't get it, you're just wasting your time. So you got to make sure, if you don't get the feedback, if you don't do your visioning and you don't get your feedback, and you think, oh, our boards are smart enough to do it, and you typically won't get buy-in. If it's the business sector that might not like it, or the development sector, someone's going to have big problems with it, and they're going to point the finger that you didn't get the community buy-in, and then you're in a pickle too. So I mean, I know, but you really, if you look at a successful comprehensive plan, it meant that they had really good buy-in, they did really good job at their visioning statement. They had a big spectrum of people participating, and that carried through the whole comprehensive plan project. You have to know that you're going to get it before you even pull the trigger.
So, one question, would it be easier to just review what we currently have and say, yes, this works, no, it doesn't? Or do you think it's better just to start over again and say, look, new vision statement, let's start from scratch?
You can do that. I mean, our visioning statement is pretty old. Our visioning statement's 21 years old, because the 2004 version never was accepted at council. So it basically got thrown out. When Mr. Kovacs kicked off his comprehensive plan rewrite in 2005, he used the 1999 visioning statement as his guiding document.
But I think, some point where there's something like to promote fishing, tourism, and the livability of Port Aransas.
Yeah.
It was something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
The vision probably hasn't changed that much.
No,
in
and
20
if you look at the 99 visioning statement, and you make a box and see how many of those items we checked off, it's amazing how many things have been checked off the box in the last 20 years. Yeah, it's amazing how accurate the 99 visioning statement is.
And that was the one
That was the better one. Yeah.
But I think things have changed in 21 years. Lots.
Yeah, it has changed. Yeah.
In 21 years.
But it's amazing going back and reading the 1999 one. It's amazing how, their foresight and how down the road they were looking.
Would be worth looking at.
Yeah.
How often would you have to do this? Sounds like every 5 years or something.
Well, the guidance, if you read professional planners, they're saying you should at least update your zoning every 5 years. Now, I don't know. I don't think they mean start from scratch, but every 5 years or so. And we had in 2016 approved a new comprehensive plan, and we were on the path. It got a little delayed in 2016, but we were moving towards that. We had actually started the redoing the coastal management plan was under reconstruction. So some of them had already kicked off, and then the hurricane hit and it was game over. Yeah, we did the thoroughfare, we did the traffic study. So we had kicked it off in 2016, but
Yeah.
you know what happened?
All this is coming back to me.
Yeah, 2017 was, it was the end of it. But it was moving down the road. Now, we did not redo the visioning.
So you think that's important to do now?
If you can get the community buy-in, if you can get all sectors of the community involved.
A Google search, vision statement, oriented community of leading people of diverse interests and ages, known for their tolerance to differing views and opinions, their acceptance of individuality, and their solidarity in supporting their fellow citizens. Who wrote that? I don't know, but then when you click on it, it takes us to our city, but it has our focus and vision, but it doesn't have that one paragraph. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So it was interesting. We are eating people.
We're eating people.
Yeah, they really said that. Well, again, I mean, I'm not trying to make it extra work, but
And that's another assistant. I mean, it really, that's a great point, Lizzie, to bring. I didn't even think about trying to get an assistant. but
It would take an assistant for me to pull this off.
No, yeah,
And
I
I
think it needs
recognize
it. We can't keep putting, I mean, I hate to say that we're gonna become prices, not to God, this is our last one, but,
No, it's just-
you know, we just, Dave is one person, Darla's one person, we cannot, I mean, you two are the very critical in this, and.
Well, we may be a city with a population of 4,000 people, but we all know it's a big, much bigger city than that. And there's a lot more.
When we pulled it off and, you know, we pretty much did it from 05 to 2010 is when we adopted typically the last thing you do all your other plans first, and it leads to the culmination of you adjusting and making big changes to your chapter 25, which is your zoning. Subdivision, it's not that big of a change because so much of subdivision is state law. But really your big culmination of your thoroughfare plans, your future land use plan, your hike and bike plan, parks and rec plan, you're doing all these things first. At the very end, you pull the trigger because all those impact your zoning and your zoning chapter. And then that's what you finish with. So when we started in 05, you know, it was hike and bike mobility. You're kind of cherry picking your easier ones first, and then you're narrowing down. And then we finished in 2010 with the adoption of all the new zoning changes. So
that was also when you were planning director. And
right, I
city
was,
manager,
yeah, I
now
was
you're
planning
both.
director.
But that would be.
And it was, and I look back and I'm like, you know, what did we do from 2005 to 2010? And you know what? We were a normal city. We didn't have there was no catastrophes. The worst thing we dealt with was seaweed. And, you know, you had time to run, you really truly managed a city, and you did real things like comprehensive plans. And now our world is a little upside down because
Yes.
2017, because Hurricane Harvey changed that.
We're still dealing with it. You know, we're still dealing with the FEMA and our engineering help, and just it's a big deal.
And we've had a lot of growth since then, and I think that's why we are in a position where we could very easily support an assistant city
Yeah.
manager.
I mean, we have a 10-person team dealing with FEMA.
It's crazy.
It's a 10-person team.
Wow.
It's daily.
It's gonna happen, and he says, oh, it's gonna be minimum of 5 years of recovery. You don't know 4A, like, this is gonna be 5.
Who was that?
Good guy from Oliver.
Remember the
Who
very.
was it?
The gentleman from Oliver. The gentleman from Oliver. Remember that we met on Stead?
Oh, yeah, that's right, oh, that's right, yeah, from Bolivar, yeah.
I was in that in some ways. You're right, and he was right, because for personal and most businesses, they were up and fixed in 2 years. But for the city government, that was not the case at all. Granted, it got more devastation than some of the businesses, but
And FEMA has changed.
yeah. Yeah, so we're looking at hiring a planning assistant / assistant city manager type position.
Right,
which
right.
would be
I
both.
mean, wherever, I just think whatever you guys feel like would be the most beneficial.
I think you'd have to hire that person. They'd need to be on board for a year,
I agree.
and then they'd be assigned that task.
I mean, that's, you'd hire an assistant city planner, like basically follow the same
Yeah.
path you did. Goes all community meetings and looks for grants and budgets.
Yeah.
And then once he kind of knows Port A, knows what he's doing, then you can say, okay, well, here's more responsibility.
Sounds exciting.
You have to deal with
Yeah,
my-
I know, me too.
All right, item K. Ideas not listed.
I have a question. This is something Edwin, and I'm not supporting this or not supporting it, just throwing it out there. Edwin Myers approached me one time and said that, the mayor does so much stuff in the city. Maybe we should look in the future making that a paid position. That a legitimate concern? Is that something you don't agree with? Sorry, I should have warned you before you put that. I don't know if that's something that maybe we might need to look at in the future. It might say maybe 10 years down the road or 8 years down the road or. I agree, but it's, I just think that it might be during the position right now, especially the last couple of years, that it's not like a come in once a month kind of position.
Mayor's role is to come in once a month anyway.
No,
whether
but I
you
mean,
get paid or not.
but you know what I'm saying though, it's not like we show up basically, me as a councilman, myself once a month to city business, where the mayor is like the mouthpiece of the deal. And I'm just throwing this out there, I'm not saying I'm for this or against it. I'm just.
I remember Georgia being in the office every day when she was mayor.
I think Charles is in the office every day that he can be as well, so.
So I think it's just things that mayors do. I don't know that you pay them for it. That's just what they do.
Okay, well, that's why I'm throwing it out there. But I agree, it's a very slippery slope when you start paying less officials.
Mhm.
So we pay our judge and
Maybe it would be worth looking at other towns and other cities and get some ideas about what's done before, considering.
we let that judge never go.
And just.
I mean, they would, it's just a thought, not like, we're gonna do it tomorrow. What's your kind of take on that?
I think I sided with Wendy. I mean, I think if you hire an assistant city manager, you don't need a paid mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a legitimate.
Plus just the fact that, our setup is, strong city manager government. And if you do a paid one, they're deferring to the council, they're deferring to the city manager is the administrator of the city.
That's fine. I said, again, this is something Evan Meyer, every time I see him, like.
Well, yeah.
But this is
Yeah.
just a discussion or just a thing, and not just the idea.
Right.
And that's fine with me. I
Right.
agree with you. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea, but he said to me about 5 times now, so I just thought.
So you brought it up. That's good.
And that's all I was gonna do. Anybody else got anything that you want to on there?
Is this different than policy items for consideration?
I think that's really the same.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
That's something we're not covering here, but.
Well, no, just on golf cart issues. I think.
Yeah, that's all, that's, you can
Is
throw,
that
throw out
something that-
anything.
okay,
Yeah, that's,
Golf cart, you know, just maybe thinking about limiting, like having a curfew for golf carts. Limit, I mean, you know, I mean, we have a golf cart business, but people are not, no matter how much you go through, how much you tell them, you know, the speed is still too fast, I think, on these golf carts, which we
You mean
hate
like golf
because
cart
we're
too fast
driving
or
behind a golf cart that's slow, but a lot of times they're speeding and they're going around a corner. So, you know, we have them flipped, not flipped all the way, but they'll land on the side, you know, full of people. And then, you know, maybe thinking about, I mean, I know my son especially is researching different coastal towns with golf carts, you know, what their rules are, but some of them have like, you know, 11 p.m. curfew or midnight or, you know, I don't know. I mean, I love golf carts. It's part of the experience down here. It's getting, if we took away the golf cart, which we can't, but if, you know, the traffic would be insane. Golf carts are gonna use way less space than an actual car. So I'm definitely, you know, I think golf carts are a good thing. I just think we really need to look at, you know, and hopefully, and I know the police are very, you know, I'm sure understaffed, and I don't know if we could charge more for, you know, the fines or something where it would cover a police officer or two. But I think like I mean, they're drinking, you know, on these golf carts, and they're just as dangerous as cars.
I
You know?
used to be, so when I had golf cart.
$50 for Port A resident, local, with a Port A driver's license, 100 for everyone else.
But if you get a ticket, is it the same?
Ticket's a moving violation, whether it's a
So it's the same
DUI,
as the
yeah,
car.
speeding,
Okay.
Now,
reckless driving, it's the same.
I was saying, I'm not in the golf cart business. I rent locations, people who have golf carts, but how would a curfew like stop speeding or anything? That's just a question. I thought a good idea, and I guess maybe this is time to bring it up. There's a lot of people like driving on the sidewalks down.
Ballards, I know. we
Okay,
do.
so, no, I don't.
Suggest driving on the sidewalk.
We are looking, yeah.
No, I'm getting the point here. So there are like 3 or 4 legal crossings. But why don't we put a single pole bollard in the middle of the walkways so the golf carts can't?
TxDOT won't let us.
On the driveway, on the sidewalk?
Yeah, I've been wanting to do that forever.
You can't, why can't we put a sign there that says speed limit or something? Right on the ramp where so when you got the 5 lane.
I've wanted to do that forever, and they said that is a huge safety issue for the bicyclist.
But they have the signs out there doing the exact same thing. Why is it okay for them to put a sign?
Well, I'd
on
like to
that, but-
stencil, what we could do is stencil, but a physical barrier, we've been denied, and we've asked multiple times. And they said, no, you're gonna have a guy on a 20 speed, a cyclist hauling ass, listening to his rock and roll, and then pow! What's that baller doing in the middle of the bike path?
Okay, so can we put some money in for no golf carts on the sidewalk, mask and 20 gallons of paint?
Stencil program, yes.
Yeah.
I requested a stencil program.
But what are you gonna do, like a big golf cart with a circle and a line through it?
Maybe.
They're gonna like, be like, what is that?
Well, they can be, if you do that, no carts, $500 fine. You wouldn't believe what our signs on the beach did.
Oh, really good?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
I talked to the Braun and the beach vendors. When we put up those signs, they said their beach sticker sales went through the roof.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
No, I think that signs would help too.
Well, just as, the stencil, I think it's cheap and you'll redo it every 2 or 3 years. 'Cause other than the golf carts on the sidewalk, I don't see them used that much. I hate to say it.
Hey, Chris. About 20 minutes.
Other than people who golf.
Council chambers. Council,
I mean, I
okay,
see
bye.
them, but there's like different.
Okay, bye.
Family walking or, it's not like they're a big crowd like.
But not big crowds on the park road?
Yeah, no, Park Road.
Oh, sure.
No, I'm talking about 361 from G to Access Road and A.
Oh, yeah, well, there's not enough, I don't think it's out there.
I understand that, but I'm saying, all I see is, so if we stencil on each of the little, at each of the road, on the left and the right side of the sidewalk, a golf cart, with a little circle or whatever you want to do, stencil it, so when they, either way they come, they turn, they're gonna see there's no golf cart. And do that. And I think about 20 gallons of paint, and a little stencil would be,
We'll do a stencil
Yeah,
program.
let's do it.
let's see if it works,
Okay, it's gonna be done.
We're gonna start bringing the departments over. Yeah, we're gonna take a little break. Yeah.
On the golf cart?
Yeah.
So I just did 4,000, let's say it's $4,050, that's $200K a year, you divide that by 12 months, that's just over $4 a month. And, then the out of town's 100, I say you did increase each one of those $50 right away. That's an additional 200K. On the
So what is the fine?
other side, and utilize those funds.
I suggested that, and I was told that.
Well, that's why we did it the first time.
David, what
Yes,
is the
Joan.
fine? What is the fine for
Well,
driving
it's
on
the
361?
same as a car, moving violation in a car. Or
Is
do you mean, what's the fine for driving on a sidewalk?
driving on a sidewalk or driving down 361, either one.
I think the cops do a fee and then it goes to the judge. Yeah, it goes to the judge.
Well, I will say, on experience, the last couple times that we've had it like golf carts, the police officer hasn't been involved because we were short-handed on police officers.
Yeah.
The ambulance people are there, but not the golf cart, not the police officers. That's happened 3 or 4 times this summer.
Officers don't said that the police are trying to reduce their contact with people just for the COVID reason as well.
I'm just saying, the last 3 or 4 accidents that my son's had to go pick up the golf cart, the ambulance people are there, but not a police officer. But it could be because we're short-handed. I mean, we're only running like 2 officers per shift. I mean, there could be.
That doesn't sound right. I would think a cop has to show up at any vehicular accident and do a report.
I have heard what Beth has said is true as well, but
I'm gonna have to find out about that one. I would think the police have to show up at any cart. Yeah,
Back as a cart owner, cart company owner, and David, do you feel like the majority of the accidents or violations that we have with carts are done after dark? In other words, if we did consider a curfew, would that be helpful?
I just think the drinking, that some of the 99% of the situations that are happening, they've been drinking all day and, maybe it will deter. I guess the drinking, I don't know. They just seem like more carelessly, at night, they forget it because.
Charge a higher deposit on your car.
No, I mean, we're gonna do it at our end. I'm just saying, as a community, I mean, I think we are seeing some serious problems with golf carts because the tourists come down in a relaxed mindset that we're a small town, nothing bad's gonna happen here. They're driving around, they're drinking more freely. And it's a fine balance, because I'm not anti-golf cart. I think that it's a good thing. I just think like we need to be a little bit more strict on our rules. Our speed is still too high, I think, for a golf cart. I mean, a golf cart is really for a golf course. We don't have,
When you say, I'm sorry,
I'd rather see those
when you
other
say the
vehicles
speed
that are
limit,
getting
the speed
popular now.
limit is too high, like, you're talking about cars or?
No, the golf cart speed is,
So this should be like 15.
I know.
The regulator's
You can
25, I
regulate it. There's a regulator on there. Yeah.
But if you're in a vehicle and you're trying to get to town and you're behind
I know, then it's gonna drive everyone
Like I
crazy.
am.
Yeah,
I mean, no, I get it, it's a balance.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I will say the flip side is if you
I
want to
was
find,
thinking like, if there was a, I would like to ask that one or, other, I just know like, seeing it around town and dealing with golf carts.
I guess my problem is having like, say, let's go Kurt. We say at 11 o'clock, all golf carts have to be off. So what we've done now is we have just given another rule that our 2 or 3 officers on duty have to go and enforce, that they should probably be at the beach working down there or maybe speeding. And so the deal is what we're doing, we have a lot more what we would term non-compliance because, you know, we have a bunch of rules that aren't being enforced because we don't have manpower.
Well, I'd suggest how to pay for that.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm like, we must need,
I know that's the dilemma is
is specific officers that just deal with. I mean, we could have, we could.
That's what I was saying, you
Yeah.
do for the $50, because it's just 4,000.
Because I get it.
You can increase that 20, that's the local amount. If you increase that by $25, well, that's an additional $100.
And that's
And
what
then
we're,
you can talk about this.
There's enough to do something, because there's just so many of them.
right, but I mean, here's the problem, and it's back to everything, it's one officer can't control everything for 4 months, and then the other 8 months he doesn't do anything. And so we need like, it's like police, we need 100 police now to patrol the city, and then the rest of the year they need to go away for things, otherwise you have a police state where anytime you know, you spit on the sidewalk, they're gonna write.
I know, but just like in my business, I pay employees 12 months of the year because I need them for that 4 months.
I
Or
understand.
you could use them for. You
Yeah.
could get officers on special duty, you know what I mean,
They can't, well, they can't put spring break, they have all of your licenses.
because they're
The
not.
T1 state thing.
Yeah, but I mean, if you go look at the numbers for like golf carts or anything, we need 100 officers from traditionally from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and then the rest of the year you need 8. I know that you come and have an accident on December, and you know it's like someone gets pulled over and there are like 5 police officers there because there's nothing going on. They show up at a call. Anyway.
so James said that if there's a golf cart incident, Beth,
Yeah.
like if someone falls out of the cart,
Yeah.
the cops don't go to that. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff. He said there's plenty of cart instances
Yeah.
where the EMS might be there, but not necessarily a
So
police officer.
We had at least 4 this summer that they fell out.
Yeah.
Because they're turning too
Yeah,
fast. Because
mhm.
the cart is
Yeah, the
fast,
police
and
don't
even
show
this
up for
year,
that.
they
EMS
don't
would show up.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, he goes, because there's no report, there's no crash report, so the cops don't
Or
necessarily
if they
show up.
fall on it.
But isn't that, now they're not wearing seatbelts, so again, that's an enforcement issue. But I guess it's one of the things that I look at it is, we already have a law in place to deal with all these situations. It's just a matter of enforcement, like volleyball cart, it's seatbelt, going around the corner, that's unsafe driving. You're drinking alcohol, that's DUI. So it's like, we already have rules for all of these, and just having like a curfew is just another rule that's not gonna be enforced, and we already have something else, another issue for another law to take care of that. And I'm not disagreeing with you there, I
Well, I have wondered if we couldn't find retired law enforcement people or, you know, somebody with some kind of authority that could be hired in the summer to work and do these kinds of issues.
If what?
It used to be that you could not work in multiple jurisdictions, and they changed law after. Because your license before had to just be by one.
Yeah, we could even put the cop in a golf cart,
yes.
and he would be the golf cart police.
Yeah.
Right? I love it.
Like, he's don't copy him.
All right, let us look into that one.
Okay.
Yeah, All right, we're gonna take a mini break and then we got directors coming.
How long's our break?
Let's do 5 or whatever. Well, I got Chris coming. We'll start with fire.
Can we just use the park? I need to
Oh, yeah.
Really? The only
I
one
sent a
that-
message, but I don't know.
Tim,